of Brees and the Saints. Matt Moscona, kind enough to join us once again. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Moscona. He does afternoons on the ESPN radio stations in both New Orleans and Baton Rouge. Matt, first off, first time in 2021. Hope you and the family are safe and well. How are you?
Hey, guys. Good morning. Happy New Year. Yeah, we're good. Morning what was likely the end of an era last night, but overall good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rough couple of weeks, Matt. Alabama wins the national title. New Orleans loses, and Brees is retiring. As glorious as it was a year ago when we were talking to you, boy, the beginning of 2021, certainly not the beginning of 2020 for the Louisiana sports fan.
Yeah, I think the Alabama stuff we've all just come to expect, right? I mean, they won another one. Okay, well, I mean, how many is enough? How many is too many? This year, I think, even though Brees at the beginning of the season didn't announce that it was his final year, I think everyone here just roundly understood it. He was, a lot of the reports are, guys, he was telling people at the Pro Bowl last year that last season was his final year. Then he made the decision to come back. So, I mean, everyone sort of knew what was on the line. I mean, for this era of Saints football, this was their opportunity to get that sort of defining second Super Bowl for Payton and Brees. And, just this season's going to be remembered like so many others with the playoff disappointment. And, it's I put this on Twitter, and I'm sure a lot of people could relate to it. The Saints feel a lot like the Braves of the 90s. You had some great teams, some all-time great players, won a ton of games, won a bunch of division championships. But, man, in the playoffs, they're mostly going to be remembered for coming up short time and again. And as unfortunate as that is for Sean Payton and Drew Brees, and they got their one together. But, this is a sport unlike most other that's defined by Super Bowls, by rings, by titles. And I never want to scoff at one, because I think any Saints fan who was a Saints fan forever never thought the one was ever going to be a reality. And it's the conflicting feeling this morning, guys, for Saints fans. It's, this era brought you so much that you never thought could happen as a Saints fan. And they defined this franchise for the last 15 years, but you're always going to say, man, it should have been more.
Matt, there's a question that we've asked in these parts, because you brought up those great Braves teams throughout the 90s and into the 2000s. The Braves were a consistent contender. I mean, I think they won the division 14 consecutive years, but they only won it once. And so the question we would ask was, would you rather be the Braves or the Marlins, who, of course, up until last year had only made the playoffs twice, but won it both times, and in and around it were a disaster. Okay. Yeah. And that's, and in a way, Saints fan, 4 straight division titles, 4 years in a row in particular, in which you guys were one of the favorites entering the playoffs to get to the big game, never mind win it. And to not get there once, and really, Matt, only get to the NFC Championship game the one time, I could see where you are feeling a little empty. This is very Braves Marlins-esque here.
Yeah, the I hadn't thought about the Marlins, and I guess as a Yankees fan, 03 always stings. So I'd rather not think about the Marlins in that respect. But yeah, I guess I hadn't thought of it in those terms. What would I rather? I guess having had just in the context of Saints history, I mean, it took this team more than 30 years of existence before they won a playoff game. I mean, from 1967 to 2000, the Saints never won a playoff game. They didn't make the playoffs for the first 20 years until 1987. So any success, to your point about the Marlins, any success would have been welcomed. I think what the Saints did, though, in this era is label themselves a consistent contender, and they've made themselves a more desirable place for free agents to come and win. Now, obviously, replacing Drew Brees is going to be the cornerstone of whatever the next era of Saints football is. Who is that guy, and can they consistently win with someone other than Drew? And that's the giant question. But from a fan's perspective, considering what the Saints were for my entire life until Sean Payton and Drew Brees showed up, I'd take either. I would take the Marlins scenario or the Braves scenario. I mean, the chance to win, I'd take either.
Boy, as someone, and I'm not a Lions fan. I'm born and raised in Michigan, and I'm not for the reasons you talked about. My whole life, they've been bad. I already rooted for as many losers as I needed to growing up. I couldn't add another. So I understand I'm like you. I'm like, yeah, either one of those sound really good. Today, professional lip readers across the world are trying to make out a 10-second clip in which Barstool thinks that Drew Brees has told Jameis, this is your team now. Put your GM hat on. Who do you think is the starting quarterback week 1 for the New Orleans Saints?
Well, Sean Payton has said that he feels like the next quarterback is already on the roster. And guys, I don't think that's lip service. I mean, if Sean has this feeling of, and I'm going to say this in the most respectful way possible. Sean feels like he's the smartest guy in the room. And in many instances, he is. And so I think the Taysom Hill experiment was him legitimately thinking that he could make Taysom Hill a starting quarterback in the NFL. And I think we saw pretty emphatically that his lack of ball security, his inability to read defenses, slow to make decisions. I think he's got a long way to go. And are you really willing to be patient with a guy who's already in his 30s? So, I mean, guys, I think Jameis Winston is the guy. I mean, maybe that's just bias because I've said that all along, and I want that to be the case because I think Jameis in his second go round in the NFL in the right spot could be immensely successful. I mean, guys, he's 26. He's basically in New Orleans at the same time the Saints got Drew Brees. He's got all the physical ability that everybody knows to be the number 1 overall pick. I love that when he was faced with adversity, probably for the first time in his athletic life, being cut by Tampa. That's probably the first time in his athletic career he's faced adversity. I mean, he's always been the best on every team he's ever been on, baseball or football. And instead of letting that crush him, he went the opposite way. Guy went vegan. He's in the best shape of his life. He had LASIK to fix his eyes. He's been a perfect teammate this year. Just the competitor wanted to play, but I think Jameis showed this entire organization that he has matured tremendously. And in this offense with Sean Payton, I think could be a fantastic starting quarterback in the NFL. I mean, to answer the question roundabout way, if I had to guess today, I think Jameis Winston is the Saints starter to begin the season next year.
He's Matt Moscona. Afternoons, ESPN Radio in New Orleans and Baton Rouge. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Moscona, talking about the Saints and where they go from here. What's the deal with Michael Thomas? Listen, I'll give Carlton Davis all the credit in the world. The Bucs game plan was different this time. They were after early zone. They went aggressive man-to-man underneath, and they basically said to Brees, we don't think you've got the arm strength to beat us deep. And he didn't, and they didn't.
Yeah.
But Michael Thomas didn't have a catch, and he just looked different out there. And what happened to Michael Thomas this year? Is this just he was banged up from week 1 and he never got healthy, or is something else going on?
No, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, the ankle injury he suffered against Tampa week 1 was legitimate. I mean, that caused him to miss more than half the season. The really disappointing part about last night really is they put Thomas on IR for the last 3 weeks to basically let him get as close to 100% as he could for the playoffs. And actually played pretty well last week against the Bears, but the Bears certainly focused on him, and Deontay Harris was there to pick up the slack. I think had somebody else last night emerged in the way Harris did a week ago, we probably wouldn't be talking about the Thomas angle as much. Maybe that's naive a bit. I mean, to be shut out completely is shocking. But even in those moments when teams have focused so much attention on Mike Thomas, he's managed to find a way to get separation, get open. He's got great hands. He normally catches everything Drew throws to him. I don't have a great explanation for last night. I was a little surprised they didn't try to push the ball to him more. I thought the goal line play in that first possession where it was wide and they ended up settling for the field goal. I thought maybe that was a little. I get going to him in that spot. He almost made a great catch, but I don't know that it was for lack of effort trying to get him the ball. I just also think, guys, it was one of those games where they only ran 60, 65 plays, 60 plays in the game. It was just a day where the Bucks played ball control, the Saints turned it over, and Mike Thomas, I think, was just a casualty of the day. But for everyone asking, is Thomas unhappy in New Orleans, or the Saints looking to part ways? That seems like an impossibly far-fetched reality. I think he fits in this offense. They've built their offense around him, basically. Last night was just a terrible night, man.
Matt, final question. They've kicked the can down the road a lot from a cap standpoint to be all in with Drew during this 4-year run. Are the Saints in a bit of a rebuild or just a retool next year?
Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to be in a total rebuild. And, they have maybe the most unheralded guy in the entire organization is Kai Harley. He's the guy who's their sort of capologist, and he's the one that makes all these deals work. So, I mean, there are going to be casualties. There's no doubt. I mean, it's impossible for me to see Jared Cook being back. Obviously, Brees not being back is going to save you about $14 million against the cap next year. There's ways it's going to work, and they're going to have some tough decisions. Guys like, Trey Hendrickson is one guy, for example, who was second in the NFL in sacks this year, but you're already paying Cam Jordan, and you got Marcus Davenport, who you used a first-round pick on. If there's a team that comes in and wants to pay Trey Hendrickson, top-end money, you're not going to be able to afford him. So there may be some casualties like that, but overall, you still got the core of this team is still guys who are on their rookie deals. And when those contracts come due for guys like Ryan Ramczyk and they paid Alvin Kamara, they paid Michael Thomas. When the contracts come due for Ryan Ramczyk and Marshawn Lattimore, you have to make some decisions about are you willing to pay these guys top dollar to keep them, or do you move on and try to get younger through the draft? But it feels very much guys like Seattle after the Legion of Boom, like when all those contracts came due, they couldn't keep everybody.
Right.
Saints are kind of now on that line right now where they're gonna have to make some tough decisions.
Matt, appreciate your time, particularly on what is a sorrowful day in the state of Louisiana. Matt, we always appreciate it. Stay safe. Be well.
Okay, guys. We'll see you.